The morning sun cast long shadows across Forest Lawn Memorial Park as a convoy of black vehicles pulled through the gates. It had been 15 years since the world mourned the king of pop, and today, something unprecedented was about to happen. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a renowned forensic specialist, stepped out of the lead car, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a leather briefcase. She had received the call 3 days ago, a call that would change everything she thought she knew about one of history's greatest entertainers. The Jackson family had authorized the opening of Michael's tomb. Not for publicity, not for spectacle, but because of a mysterious letter that had arrived at their lawyer's office. The letter, written in Michael's own handwriting and dated just weeks before his death, contained specific instructions. It was to be opened only after 15 years had passed, and it demanded that his resting place be examined. The contents of that letter remained sealed, known only to the family's inner circle, but the urgency in their voices when they contacted Dr. Mitchell suggested something extraordinary. As she walked toward the mausoleum, accompanied by 3 family representatives and a small team of specialists, Sarah felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Security personnel formed a tight perimeter around the building. No cameras, no press, this moment belonged to the truth alone. Inside the marble structure, the air felt thick with anticipation. Michael's name gleamed in gold letters on the wall, surrounded by flowers that fans still brought daily, even after all these years. The head of security broke the seal on the tomb's entrance. The sound of breaking wax echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. Sarah's heart pounded as the heavy door slowly swung open, revealing darkness beyond. Whatever lay inside had waited patiently for this exact moment, preserved in silence, holding secrets that were about to shock the world. The tomb's interior was surprisingly spacious, lit now by portable LED lights that cast stark white illumination across every surface. Sarah's team moved with practiced precision, documenting everything with cameras and notebooks. But within minutes, they found something that made everyone freeze in place. Beside the ornate casket, positioned deliberately on a raised platform, sat a sealed titanium case with a digital lock. The case was modern, clearly placed there intentionally, and bore a simple inscription, "For the world to know when the time is right." Sarah's hands shook as she examined the lock. It wasn't designed to keep people out forever, it was designed to be opened on a specific date. Today's date. The mechanism clicked open automatically as midnight had passed, as if Michael himself had reached across time to unlock it. Inside the case, they found 3 items that defied all expectations. First, there were dozens of hard drives, each labeled with years and locations. Second, a thick journal filled with Michael's handwriting, documenting events that the public had never heard about. Third, and most shocking, was a collection of recorded videotapes marked the Truth Protocol. But the real discovery came when they examined the casket itself. Following the instructions in Michael's letter, they carefully opened it, expecting to find his remains. Instead, they found weights, carefully measured to match his body weight, and a lifelike mannequin created from medical-grade materials. The actual body was missing. In its place was a single photograph showing Michael alive, standing in an undisclosed location, dated 6 months after his reported death. On the back of the photo, written in his distinctive handwriting, were the words, "I'm sorry I had to leave this way. They were going to kill me. Everything you need to know is in the recordings. Protect my children. Tell my truth." The room fell silent except for the sound of someone's sharp intake of breath. Sarah looked at the family representatives, whose faces had gone pale. They had known something was wrong, suspected something for years, but this confirmation shattered every assumption. Michael Jackson, the man the world had mourned, might have staged his own death. The question that burned in everyone's mind was simple yet terrifying. Why? They moved everything to a secure facility that same night. The family insisted on complete secrecy until they understood what they were dealing with. Sarah and her team, now joined by digital forensic experts and 2 trusted investigators, began processing the hard drives. What they uncovered was a meticulously documented conspiracy that stretched back decades, involving some of the most powerful figures in the entertainment industry. The first video they watched showed Michael in what appeared to be a safe house, speaking directly to the camera. His voice was steady but filled with exhaustion. He explained how he had discovered a network of executives who were systematically exploiting young artists, stealing their copyrights, and destroying anyone who tried to expose them. Michael had gathered evidence for years, but every attempt to go public had been blocked. His phones were tapped, his staff infiltrated, and his own team had been compromised. When he threatened to release the information anyway, he received a direct death threat. Not a vague warning, a specific plan detailing how they would make his death look like an overdose. The journal provided even more disturbing details. Michael wrote about secret meetings, about finding hidden cameras in his homes, about having his food tested for poison. He documented how certain people in his inner circle were actually informants, paid to monitor and control him. The entries became increasingly desperate as he realized the trap was closing. His children were being watched. His mother received threatening calls. He knew that if he died under mysterious circumstances, the world would simply accept the narrative that he was a troubled addict who had taken too much medication. So Michael made an impossible choice. He would disappear. Using his vast resources and the help of a few loyal friends, he orchestrated an elaborate deception. The doctor who was later convicted of his manslaughter was actually helping him escape, though the doctor himself didn't know the full plan. The emergency call, the hospital drama, the death announcement, all carefully staged. Michael had spent months preparing for this moment, knowing he could never return to his old life but hoping that one day, when enough time had passed, the truth could emerge safely without putting his children in danger. The subsequent hard drives contained something even more powerful than Michael's testimony. They contained proof. Financial records showing massive money transfers, recorded phone conversations between executives discussing their schemes, contracts with forged signatures, and video footage from security cameras showing meetings where Michael's fate was openly discussed. He had been gathering this evidence systematically, using his fame and access to get close to the very people who wanted to control him. One recording was particularly damning. It showed a meeting between 5 music industry executives, their faces clearly visible, discussing how to handle the Michael problem. They talked about his massive catalog of music rights, worth billions, and how his death would trigger clauses in various contracts that would transfer control to their companies. They discussed dosages of medications, how to compromise his medical team, and how to ensure the narrative would blame Michael's own supposed recklessness. The casual way they discussed ending a human life was chilling. These weren't street criminals, they were men in expensive suits, sitting in boardrooms, treating murder as just another business transaction. But Michael had outsmarted them. He had created multiple backup copies of all evidence, stored in locations around the world with instructions for their release. He had written detailed accounts of every meeting, every threat, every suspicious incident. His journal entries matched perfectly with the recorded evidence, creating an airtight case that would be impossible to deny. He had even included financial forensic trails showing how these same executives had destroyed other artists, stolen their royalties, and covered up numerous suspicious deaths in the industry over the past 30 years. The family representatives sat in stunned silence as they processed what they were seeing. This wasn't just about Michael, it was about an entire system of corruption that had operated with impunity for decades. The question now was what to do with this information. Some wanted to go public immediately, to vindicate Michael and expose the criminals. Others worried about the danger, about the powerful forces that would fight to keep these secrets buried. And underneath all these concerns was one burning question that nobody wanted to ask out loud. If Michael faked his death and went into hiding, where was he now? Was he still alive? The decision to go public came after 3 agonizing days of debate. The family knew that releasing this information would unleash chaos, but keeping it hidden would betray everything Michael had sacrificed. They contacted federal authorities first, turning over copies of all evidence. Within hours, FBI agents arrived to secure the original materials. Several of the executives named in Michael's recordings were immediately placed under investigation. Some fled the country. Others hired armies of lawyers. But the evidence was overwhelming and meticulously documented. When the story finally broke, it exploded across every news channel simultaneously. The world learned that Michael Jackson had not died of a drug overdose administered by a negligent doctor. He had orchestrated his own disappearance to escape a murder plot. The reaction was unprecedented. Fans who had mourned him for 15 years felt a confusing mixture of joy, anger, and betrayal. The music industry went into crisis mode as investigations expanded, revealing a web of corruption that went far beyond what Michael had documented. Criminal charges were filed against dozens of individuals. Several major record labels faced federal investigations. But the biggest question remained unanswered: where was Michael now? The photograph found in the tomb showed he had survived at least 6 months after his supposed death, but that had been over 14 years ago. Sarah Mitchell, who had become the unofficial spokesperson for the investigation, held a press conference to address this question. She revealed that among Michael's belongings, they had found a final video, dated exactly 15 years after his disappearance, meant to be played publicly if his tomb was ever opened. The video showed Michael, visibly older but unmistakably himself, sitting in a simple room. His message was brief but profound. He explained that he had spent these years in peaceful anonymity, living a quiet life away from the spotlight that had consumed him since childhood. He had watched his children grow up from a distance, knowing they were safe because the world believed he was gone. He said he had no plans to return to public life, that Michael Jackson the performer had died that day in 2009, but that Michael Jackson the man had finally found the freedom he had spent his entire life searching for. He asked for forgiveness from his fans, thanked those who had helped him, and expressed hope that his evidence would create real change in an industry that had destroyed too many lives. The video ended with Michael looking directly into the camera, a small smile on his face, and saying simply, "I finally got to live. That's all I ever wanted." The screen went black, leaving the world to grapple with a truth more complex and heartbreaking than anyone had imagined. Michael Jackson had given up his identity, his career, and his public existence to save his life and expose the corruption that had surrounded him. He had spent 15 years in the shadows, waiting for the moment when his truth could finally be told. And now, wherever he was free at last. The King of Pop had made his final, most daring performance, the disappearance of a lifetime, and in doing so, had ensured that his real legacy would be justice, not just music.